In sports, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And the car business is no exception. That's this week on Motoring 2004.
TSN's Motoring 2004 is brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil. Oils fine-tuned for different engines. And Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.
It's called the Smart Car, and we saw it last week on Test Drive with Graham. But you know, I think Mercedes has the name all wrong. It should be called the Happy Car, because everywhere it goes, it brings a smile to someone's face. Now, you might think that the Smart Car is made only for people like myself of average size and not for somebody almost 7 feet tall, right? Well, stick around. We'll have more on that later. But first, as we all know, Honda and Toyota have always had a pretty good hold on the passenger car market. But just when they weren't looking, along came Mazda. And in February of this year, the Mazda 3 actually outsold the Honda Civic. And check this chart out. Although it may change from month to month, as you can see, Toyota and Honda are both in need of a reality check. Well, Toyota, for one, is not wasting any time in launching a counterattack. And as we're about to see, they have refreshed both the Corolla and the Matrix with the aim of attracting a brand new customer to the Toyota showroom.
Just celebrated our 40th anniversary here in Canada, and for 38 of those years, Toyota has really been driven by Corolla. It's at the heart of our model lineup. It's sold more vehicles worldwide than any other nameplate, and we've gotten there because of a basic Toyota philosophy, which is continuous improvement. I'd almost describe Matrix as the ideal Canadian car, and in fact, if you look at what's happened in Canada versus the United States, it's been a runaway sales success for us here. I think we're in a situation now where Matrix, at the rate of growth, could very well push to become the second biggest car in the Toyota lineup in Canada.
There have been a number of visual changes on the exterior of the product. So the front valance, the front bumper area, the front grille have all been improved and sharpened. But particularly within the interior, you'll see more of the changes. There's a new seat trim material, a number of changes to within the comfort features of the car. What we're looking for is really meeting the increasing demands of customers for individualization of their own car. And Toyota is all about customer satisfaction, and what we're doing through customization is enabling people at an accessible price, an affordable price, to make their car very unique and very individual. And that's really what we're aiming to achieve.
It's interesting, we've been exposed a bit more in the last day to some of the new customization bits, the tuner bits that Toyota now seems to be pushing quite hard. And it's interesting that Toyota, which has had a pretty sort of family values orientation over the years, is now realizing that to capture the fancy of young people because of other cars that have come along, like the Mazdas and Dodge with its SR4 and the tuner type factory cars, that they're now offering this type of car to their buyer, and thereby raising their image, I would imagine, with younger people.
If you take a look at some of the cars that we've seen today, some of the little packages, those 5-spoke wheels and the Yokohama tires, the ground effects. I love that big fat tailpipe and the $760 muffler. It looks good. It sounds good. It's about time that they did it, and the fact that they are doing it means, because they are so conservative, that there's really something to this movement.
As a mid-model makeover, it's pretty much what you call window dressing. They're doing a lot of things just to keep up with the competition. With the introduction of the XRS, though they're sort of moving it up to another level.
What really impressed me most was the handling. We've been playing out here on the skid pad, the slalom course behind us, and even with the base car, the handling is so safe and benign that it was just quite surprising. You can chuck it into a corner and lift off the gas, play with the steering, play with the brakes, and the car just sort of squishes to a halt, in a very safe way, which is what it should do.
The XRS is probably going to compete pretty well against cars like the Mazda 3 with the 2.3 liter engine, and Saturn's got an Ion Redline coming out with a supercharged engine. I think it's that with the sort of Toyota reputation for reliability and for quality and for resale value, it should do pretty well in that market.
We want to remain faithful to that core buyer who's really delivered success for Toyota. But by the same token, we want to bring some more emotion into it. And so that's what we're delivering, not a turn our back on our core customer, but say, hey, we've got a whole range of options for people who might not have thought about us in the past.
More later on Kenzie's Corner.
Mazda's product offensive started with the 6 sedan and continued with the beguiling RX-8 and Mazda 3. This week on Test Drive, we take a look at this, Mazda's latest product. This is the all-new 6 wagon, a vehicle that promises to brighten even the dankest of days. Of all the things that can be added to the new wagon, it's the GFX package that has the biggest impact, as it adds a front air dam, side sills, rear skirt, body-coloured rear spoiler, and dual oval tailpipe finishes. It really does transform the Mazda 6 from handsome to stunning, as there's not a better looking wagon to be had anywhere at any price. In this industry, it's a case of product, 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 or you die. Now this has brought something called platform sharing to the fore. In some instances it's done well, in others not so well. In the case of the Mazda 6 wagon, it's been done exceptionally well, and it boils down to one important fact. This vehicle will share its platform with some more expensive automobiles. Therefore, even though it's just a $30,000 car, it shares a lot of engineering that would be required in a $50,000 car. The result, the suspension has a better place to hang its hat, which gives this car much better dynamics. When it comes to handling, few if any front-wheel drive vehicles can match the 6's balance, feel and feedback. That ultra-stiff platform gives the front wishbones and multi-link rear designs a rock-solid base of operations. Throw in anti-roll bars at both ends and you complete a competent package. The tuning is very much to the sporty side of the road, and so body roll is benign and understeer commendably controlled, and this in spite of the 60-40 front to rear weight bias. The combination is such that the P21550R17 tyres, which really do fill out the wheel arches with authority, grip the tarmac with tenacious efficiency, while the steering rack speaks to what's happening at the road with unerring accuracy. The flip side is a ride comfort that belies the sporty overtones. True, it is firmer in nature than most, but compliant nonetheless. The back half of this Mazda 6 has been very well thought through. To begin with, there's a handle on the tailgate, thank you very much. With the seats in the upright position, there's plenty of cargo space, enough in fact to accommodate a family of 5. Fold the seats flat and it almost doubles to 953 litres. You also get tie-down hooks and a privacy cover, plus one more safety item. Basically, it's a net that reels out from the seat back and spans the distance between there and the ceiling. Now, the object of the net is to keep anything stored back here in the event that you nail the brakes. Rather than sliding forward, the net catches it and prevents it from dumping all over the person in the back seat. The beauty is, however, it still works even when the seats are folded flat. so it adds an extra margin of safety. The wagon's 3-litre V6 and its sequential variable valve timing develops 220 horsepower and 192 pounds-feet of torque, which is plenty for most occasions. That said, were it not for the optional 5-speed automatic and its low first gear, it might be a little slow to step off the line. The lazy bit is down to the engine speed needed to put peak power on the board. The 6300, which is within 200 RPM of redline, and 5000 RPM at which the horsepower and torque are developed, well, they're well up there. The automatic's other endearing trait is the manual side, as it allows the driver to set the car up for a corner without having to worry about what an unwanted automatic upshift might do to the car's balance. You know, when you slip behind the wheel of the GT V6, especially when equipped with the GFX package, you'll find a very inviting interior. Lovely two-tone materials, comfortable leather seats, and a fabulous Bose audio system that pumps out symphonic sound. However, there's one oddity, and it has to do with the placement of the seat heater switches. Plain and simply, they're just way too easy to activate, and because you can't see the warning light, the first thing you know about it is your backside starts to sizzle. It then takes an eternity, or that's what it seems like, for the damn things to cool down. There's plenty of real estate for these switches up here where you could actually see the warning light. The anti-lock equipped disc brakes are up to the task of dealing with enthusiastic driving. They resist fade commendably well, and the pedal is easily modulated at the threshold, which keeps electronic intervention to a minimum. The anti-lock system also serves as a traction control system. The sad part is that it does not extend to include a dynamic stability control package. Elsewhere, the GT wagon enjoys dual-stage front airbags, side seat-mounted airbags, and drop-down side curtains. Family station wagons typically fall into one of two categories: affordable but very boring, or fun and equally expensive. This new Mazda 6 wagon, on the other hand, well, it blends the best of both worlds. It's not only practical and affordable, it's an absolute blast to drive. The bottom line, even on a gloomy day, it manages to shine.
Our Midas tip of the week concerns inspecting and replacing the air filter. This car is typical of many in that one fastener and a couple of quick release clips allow the air filter box to come apart quite easily. Now, when you remove the air filter element, you can inspect it, but this filter should be replaced at prescribed intervals. When we look at this one, it's been in for 68,000 kilometers on this O2 car, and you can see that the filter paper, the majority of it, is discolored quite significantly. The first 3 or 4 pleats of this filter look clean, but the balance has got a lot of dirt in it. Now, these filters, with engine vibration, a lot of the heavier debris will fall out and get in the bottom of the air cleaner case. It's important to vacuum that debris up when you find significant accumulations. Now, when you've got your car in at Midas for servicing, you can ask the guys to look at this filter and replace it if necessary. Most manufacturers call for replacement about every 40 to 48,000 kilometers. The filter protects your engine from wear caused by dirt and grit entering the engine, and it also protects against a flame front if in the unlikely event that your car backfires. If you replace it at regular intervals, you'll protect your engine and you may just save some fuel. That's your Midas tip of the week.
I got involved in my enthusiasm for Porsches in, around 1960, I suppose, and as soon as I could, pretty much, I bought one.
And so the love affair began between Dan Proudfoot and his 1963 356, the first vehicle to carry the Porsche nameplate, and one of only 70,000 ever built.
I loved Volkswagens as a kid, and then imagine the pleasure of discovering that the man who designed the Volkswagen was also responsible, or his people at least, were responsible for supercar. And what caught my imagination, first of all, they look great. To my mind, they look better than any other car. But also, they were incredibly efficient, and I thought it was remarkable that this car could go 80 miles per hour and get 30 miles per gallon. So I thought that this was a car that had everything. It had looks, it had efficiency, it had comfort, a true grand touring car. This is the only new car I ever bought, actually. I got it as soon as I got a job at the Toronto Telegram back in '66, and liked it. And however, within 2 years it was showing rust, and I thought, what's the point? I never got another new car after that. I traded it in on the Porsche, which I thought was a fantastic move at the time. I was 24 years old and quite a few pounds lighter, as you can see. Here's what I like about this car. Here's what I love about this particular body. It was made in a way that cars aren't made anymore, and it brings home the fact that it's sculpture as much as car design to me. I really think cars are a form of sculpture, but especially a car like this, where you don't see any seams as you do in new cars or even in a new Porsche 911. But in this car, there's lead. It's leaded in a way that probably wouldn't be legal these days. It would not be good for the workers, but you see just a flow of metal as in a piece of sculpture.
And now for the good and bad news. The good news is that Dan has a new house. The bad news, the 356 is up for sale.
I remember Jackie Stewart when he was a bit of a hero of mine. I remember reading in his book that how he had to trade in his bicycle to get his first shotgun for skeet shooting. And the lesson he learned was that you have to let everything go at some point to get something else. And maybe I'm only learning that lesson now.
Yep.
The big guy between Clifford Ivory and John Avery is Bernard Williams, an offensive lineman with the Toronto Argonauts. And needless to say, I wasn't going to say no when he asked to check out the Mercedes smart car.
I'm 6'9", 6'9 and a quarter, actually.
And how does it?
I can get used to this. I'm gone. Hey, Cliff, you got to get you one of these, Cliff.
Well, Bernard Williams loved the smart car, as does everybody who sees it. But you know, this car may never have come to North America, not to mention the Honda Insight and the Toyota Prius, if it wasn't for high gas prices and, of course, environmental concerns. So maybe, just maybe, there's a silver lining in the price that we're paying at the pumps. Well, with his thoughts on that, let's head to the Quaker State Garage and join Bill Gardner.
Brad, if there's a silver lining to the high fuel price cloud, it's the fact that it's driving technology, and we're seeing cars like the Prius that's in the background already, gasoline and electric hybrids that are going to save you a lot on your fuel. It's also driving consumer awareness. You know, it's making us start to think, do we really need that big, heavy vehicle? Do we really need an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicle to get to work? Do we need a 5,000-pound vehicle if we're not towing a horse trailer or plowing snow or doing something with it? Maybe we could get away with a little bit smaller car. A couple of trips that I've had recently. We were in Scotland for 10 days. I saw cars over there. I'll give you a perfect example. I've got a customer here in Canada with an Audi A6. It's got a 4.2 liter 40 valve V8. Tremendously powerful car. I saw one in Scotland, exactly the same Audi A6 with a 1.9 liter turbo diesel. And it was going along the highway at 75 miles an hour just like everybody else. Probably didn't get there nearly as fast and maybe not as exhilarating to drive in terms of performance and pickup, but it certainly gets the job done, and I'm sure that vehicle gets tremendously better fuel economy than the same vehicle sold over here. So you got to think about these things. In cars, you may have a choice of one or two different engines, but when you get into sport utilities and light trucks, there's often a choice of 3 or more engine packages, and the traditional thinking has been bigger is better. Well, when fuel's close to $1 a liter, you might want to rethink that one. Now, when I was out in Vancouver the other day, went to Regency Toyota, the guys there told me they'd sold 5 Priuses in the last week versus maybe 1 a month before the fuel got to $1 a liter. One particular customer with a taxi bought one, and the guy reported back that in the first couple of weeks he was saving on average $20 to $25 a day on fuel costs alone. So it shows you just how much your savings can be. Now, if you've got an older car or a vehicle that's still viable, you can make some serious gains in your fuel economy just by adjusting your driving habits. Avoid idling, avoid high-speed driving, don't do those jackrabbit starts and cruising at high speeds on the highway. And don't leave the car idling. When I was in Scotland, I didn't see any cars idling outside of restaurants with a trail of liquid coming out of the air conditioner the way I see it in Canada. At $2 a litre, they think twice about doing things like that. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2004.
Several municipalities in Canada have recently passed bylaws which oblige motorists to yield to public transit vehicles. The bus is pulled into the sidewalk, taking on some people. He's got his turn signal on. You're required to back off and let him in. Now, you're not required to do that for private vehicles, but why wouldn't you? I mean, what's the big deal? 10 feet of space? Let the guy take it. Unless, of course, he's come up on the shoulder and wants to barge in which case, buddy, you're on your own. But most of the time when I do that, whether it's a bus or a private vehicle, I get the jaunty wave. And you know, that makes me feel good. Not only have I done a good deed for either the people in the car or all the people on the bus, but it's kind of rewarding just to think that somebody's acknowledged something that you've done that's made them feel better. So why do we fight for each little 10-foot space on the highway? Be nice to people. And you know, I hate to sound like it's on the Barney TV show here, but courtesy really is contagious. Give it a try. You'll like it. I'm Jim Kenzie.
You know, the smart car may be good on gasoline, but it's not very good if you're in a hurry, because every time you park this car, it draws a crowd. Now, before we go, I just want to remind you to check out the Motoring webpage. Log on to www.motoringtv.com or tsn.ca. And among other things, you can find out all the times of the Motoring episodes as well as the content. Well, that's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
They want to grab, again, part of the people they've lost over the years to other companies. And they're using GM technology in their product to bring that, again, at low cost and see where they can go with it.
TSN's Motoring 2004 has been brought to you by Quaker State Motor Oil, oils fine-tuned for different engines, and Midas, Total Car Care. We do that.